Hey, everybody, thanks for joining us tonight. Very special guest. Hey, and he got on the Zoom call or the StreamYard in one try. So just going to throw that out there for the other coaches in DeKalb County. Coach Luke Pruitt joining us tonight. How are you, Coach?
Doing well. How are y'all doing?
Doing
Well,
good,
very
doing
well.
good. I want to ask you one question. I'm going to send you over to Phil. I want to ask you about something you said at Media Days, and it was maybe the thing that took my attention most. And you talked about the slow build you and the staff had took with the young people at Pisgah and how someone been there for 4 years. Can you start with your staff because nobody talked more in depth about their staff than you did that day?
Yes. So, like I said the other day, a lot of these guys have been with me from day one, and I'm the top of the I guess the face of the program, but these guys have been there since day one. The first one that met me the very first day was Davey Arnold. He was over our Pee Wee program. He still is over our Pee Wee program. Um, he's my D line coach now. But he told me from day one, he was like, I've got kids coming. I would love to help if you would have me. And to begin with, he was going to be my junior high guy. And we figured out that you couldn't coach junior high with one coach. So now we have them all. We practice all of them together. It's kind of unique here, whichever situation's different. You got to make what's best of it. And so far, we feel like that's the best. The next one, Dwayne Bell, was there the first year. He had a son that was going to be a junior, Tyler, that played for us at that time. But he had been helping previous, and we kept him on as a wide receivers coach. He helps us with our outside linebackers. Um, and then Coach Warren Jeffrey, me and Coach Bell were painting on a Saturday, getting ready for spring practice. And Coach Warren walked up and was like, "Hey, me and Warren's the same age," and he was like, "I want to get back involved. I got kids coming." So his role has changed. He's high up in TVA, so he helps me with our painting our fields and does our stuff. Hooks us up on Friday night and gets all that ready to go. And he helps in our Pee Wee program still. So his roles kind of changed in some early years. He was an OLDL guy. Now he's on the road more, but his roles changed. Coach Dixie, Jason Williams, he was at Woodville, but I had previous connection because he had been in Albertville. We played against him at Lee when I was at Albertville. He'd been at Madison County. We were playing Woodville the very first game here, and he was like, "Coach, if there's ever an opportunity for me to get on your staff," he said, "I'd love to." So after the first year, we were able to get him on staff. Now his son Eric will be a junior this year, and he's the backup center, plays defensive end, plays on special teams for us. And then the two guys that we were able to get that are alumni that contacted me soon after I got the job. One of them was Joey Kirby, played linebacker here, all-state player here. He was at North Sand Mountain, and he told me, I was like, "Coach, if you ever have an opportunity to hire me, I would love to come home." His wife, Tara, teaches here. All of his boys and his daughter were here, which Jacob was with him in North Sand. Anyways, we were able to get Coach back the second year after the year of COVID. We were able to get Jacob back, and Coach has been with us now. And Jacob just graduated. He was part of that last year's senior class that kind of changed the trajectory of the program. He's got a boy Jackson to be a seventh grader, and he's got camps coming as well. And he's got daughters also in school here, Keeley. And then Coach Gilbert, Adam Gilbert. Um, he was at Scottsboro. He called me the very first day, and he was like, "Hey, you know, I'm a graduate. If there's anything I can help you with, you let me know. Um, I'm not there, but I'd love to help you, support you any way I can." His family's still here. Well, we were able to get him back. We had a job come open, and we were able to get him back. And Adam's been with me also since the COVID year, um, going into it. But all of my guys have been here long term, and that's kind of, I always want to bring them up because they're so important in the success that we've had. Because one thing about it, technically I didn't graduate here, but I feel like I have a connection because I was born when Dad was here. And, I always had a connection hearing Dad tell the stories about his time when he was at Pisgah. Um, but, since then, me and my wife have moved into the community, and we live here. We live about a mile from the school. And Coach Dixie didn't graduate here, but the rest of those guys are from Pisgah. And, and it's a special place. All those guys have vested interest in the success of the program. So, that's like I mentioned before, the first time we were able to play North Jackson 2 years ago, I didn't say a word pregame speech. I let all those assistants talk about how the importance of that game, because, it used to be old Bridgeport Stevenson, the importance of playing that old rival, which was North Jackson, and hearing those guys talk about, how awesome it was to be able to play them again, so I'm very thankful for the coaching staff that I have. Administration is great. Coach Jamie Darwin, Miss Beverly Ashmore, both of those are Pisgah graduates as well. And a lot of our faculty are graduates of Pisgah. And, you're like, what does that matter? Well, they all have vested interest, the success that we have in our school system, our school, and also our sports programs, because they graduated here. They want to see it succeed, although that is their job, but it means a little more when you're from this town. So that's something that the community is great. Coach Kirby's our baseball coach. Coach Blaine Smith's our basketball coach. All of us are all on the same page. They're both Pisgah graduates. So everybody's pulling together in the town, the community of Pisgah, and all sports on both sides of it. And it's a unique place.
Phil, Coach didn't mention he's got 4 kids in that school system too, so he's got some ownership moving forward too. So,
I don't need to leave. I don't need to leave them out. We bought our house the COVID year. And I come home, we're 0-3. Tell Laura that hey, we may not make it. And she's like, that can't happen. But my oldest son's a 6th grader. He'll be a 6th grader. He's on our oldest Pee Wee team. My middle one. My oldest is John Cooper. My middle one is Hudson. He's also moving up to the oldest Pee Wee team. And then my next one is Spencer. He will be playing next year, but he'll be a 1st grader. And then Charlie, she was actually born the first year we were here, the week we played Boaz. She's starting kindergarten. So everybody is on campus besides Mama. Laura has her own painting business. So her hours are flexible, but, I couldn't do it without her, and our coaches couldn't do it without the support that we have of our wives.
Yeah, definitely. So, and you was talking about Laura in a sense that she kind of the glue that holds things together, and she's probably your biggest cheerleader.
100%. That's the truth. That's something that Coach Bryant always said. There's a special place in heaven for coaches' wives. It was a ground up rebuild, and and she was there every step of the way along with these coaches. But they've got vested interest just like we do. The time that we spend away from our families, they're having to keep it going at home, and she's able to do that, get our kids where they need to be. But she also has a full-time business that she runs. So I don't understand how she can do it, but I'm thankful for her.
Well, Coach, seeing your kids running around, of course, you can already tell they already want to be grown. They want to be playing varsity football level, but, they've still got to be kids. And I guess you kind of have to remind yourself, hey, I got to let them be kids.
Right. It's hard growing. I grew up as a coach's kid, and we try to separate it as much as possible when they're here, and when they're at home. We try to separate football, because I told Laura last week, I said, well, it's starting because Pee Wee practice started. She kind of laughed, and she was like, when does it ever stop? And she's got a point. If it's hard to juggle sometimes. I can let that control my life, and I have to remember that I have a wife and 4 kids at home that I need to be a dad and a husband, leave football at the school, and I try my best to do that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, Coach, let's get into a little bit of football. I said, people don't need to take for granted what this football team has really done over the last 2 years. School record, two times getting to the semifinals. I think 23 wins over the last 2 seasons. That don't happen very often, but sometimes you can take that for granted.
Right. That's something that we mentioned the other day. Last year's seniors and the ones before that, they were thrown in there at a young age. And I read something, I think it was from Coach Smart the other day, that mentioned, you never want to get to the point that you don't celebrate wins, celebrate victories, because that makes it not fun. And that's something that we always celebrate every victory. But where these guys came from, we knew that if they stayed together, we would have an opportunity to have some success. And, it's pretty special from the inside watching where we started and watching those guys kind of figure out, that, hey, we can do this. Isaac mentioned the other night about, it kind of, the North Sand Mountain game was kind of the game when they were all freshmen that we kind of, we beat them for the first time, come from behind, got the win. That was the year we won the region. And then, the next year we play in the semifinal. We kind of figure out after we played Fyffe that we could, compete with them, physically match them or whatever. In this past season, we felt like, hey, going into it, we wanted that challenge. We come up short with them, but, I wouldn't trade last season for anything. And, I'll always be indebted to these past couple of senior classes, because it was not really all the senior classes that I've had. It wasn't popular to play when we first got here. And now they're starting to see the buzz and excitement outside our community. Our community has been great from day one, but outside the community, people are starting to take notice and give our guys the recognition they deserve.
Yeah, definitely so. But, Coach, I want to go back to last year, and we kind of discussed this, and you kind of pointed it out during media days. But last year when you played Fyffe, you lost Mason. John Kirby, who's a real good friend of mine, we talked on Sunday, and he had told me that Mason wasn't going to be playing on Friday. And, of course, it wasn't official. But, you lost, kind of sort of that maybe, it's just one player, but, kind of lost, your identity kind of maybe went away and had to change things. But that way, I was so surprised by this football team, how they picked their level of play up against Fyffe and played so well defensively. Sometimes when you take something away, everybody else comes in and rallies. And you talked about this, and something comes out, everybody steps up, and you find out maybe that something that you didn't think was the strength of your team turned out to be the strength of the team. And that was the defense in the Fyffe game.
Absolutely. We find going through the week, we find out that he's out. Anytime you lose a 4-year starter, the guy that's been there, he's QB1, whatever you want to call him. He's got the moxie. All the kids followed him. Anytime you lose him, it's going to hurt, and having Luke stepped in and done a phenomenal job. But, just like that, our offense changes because Luke and Mason's not the same. Not only do you lose a 4-year starter at quarterback, but you lose a very productive X out there on the edge, and so now, coach gets 3 days to put a game plan against the defending state champion, and then on top of that, Luke gets sick during the week, but I think him getting the virus during the week kind of rallied us. We circled the wagons a little bit, but you're 100% right. These senior this year and last year seniors, we had enough leadership and enough about us that we didn't make an excuse for that. And, and I'll never, you can say what if and all that. I'll never say what if. It was the hand that we were played. And going into it, we said, hey, we're not going to make, we're going to go lay it on the line and how it lay is what happened, and that's what we did. And yes, our defense stepped up, but offensively, we moved the football, was very productive, and we came up short. But that's something that the first time we play them, we scored 40 points. You're supposed to win that game. And our kids the first time did exactly what we asked them. I didn't do a good job defensively putting them in the right spots, and like I said, we felt like we could play them again. And not that we were saving the first time, but, we kept some things just trying to, kind of see going into it the next game. But, I'll go still getting emotional 6 months, 7 months later. But, we told them that night that, we're going to be able to sleep when it's over with because we laid it on the line. And that's exactly what our kids did. So, I'll forever be thankful and grateful for those guys in that locker room that night.
Yeah, of course, the offense eventually found their identity and moved the ball very well. You actually pulled within 24-14, missed a 2-point conversion, or it would have been a one-score game there late in the ball game. So really you were right there where you wanted to be, and those kids gave themselves an opportunity to get back in that football game.
Oh, absolutely. And I mentioned at media day that, the interception and the clip right before halftime, I'm not one to make with that, but if we have a chance to go in 8-6, it's a different locker room. Not that it was bad at 6-0, but you talking about up 8-6 against the defending state champion, and we got 24 minutes to play. Who knows? Those guys that fought their tails off, and we come out and get a goal line stand. So that's something. Like I said, I'm proud of the way our kids played, and like you said, we kept firing away, and we just ran out of time, and that happens sometimes. But like I said, I'm proud of the way our kids played.
Well, Coach, it kind of reminded me, and that's the reason I like this team so well. And the state championship year we lost our big bell cow, our big explosive player in the first round of the playoffs. Well, we had to pick up our defense. Well, we give up 30 points in 5 ball games, and that's what won us a state championship. And now I think you as a staff can count on that defense. Well, let's talk about this year. A lot of expectations, new stadium. I know the kids are probably excited about having the new bleachers. The community's probably excited. Of course, it's not going to matter when the Friday lights come on. But right now, it's nice to have that new venue.
Absolutely. This is something that our community's been needing for the last couple of years, and we were thankful for the Board of Education. We were able to get the bleachers and a new stadium, and they actually got it exactly like I wanted, and same with Coach Darwin. But it's a nice venue. Been able to watch games, and also we're fixing to get a brand new LED scoreboard. It's 26x13. It's a video board that's coming as well to be installed in 2 weeks. So we're excited about that as well. We're doing some upgrade. We're getting a bathroom upgrade in our field house, and we're fixing to convert a new meeting room in our field house as well. It's going to have theater style seating. So we're really excited about that as well.
Yeah, that's definitely so. Well, Coach, let's talk a little bit about the season coming up. The area, Fyffe does move up to Class 3A, but you're still going to have those things to deal with down the road. Now, you kept some great rivalries in your non-region schedule, that being Fyffe, which will open the first game of the season on a Thursday. You'll still have Sylvania. You've picked up Plainview. The region schedule, naturally is going to be challenging because you really don't know who's going to be thrown at you. We know Pleasant Valley is going to be a little better. Sandrock's supposed to be better. Section will be better. You don't know who's going to be coming at you because a lot of those schools have a lot of question marks. But you wanted to keep that challenging non-region schedule.
Yes, I think the last 2 years that's helped us tremendously. Our non-region, if you can stay healthy through it, it should help down the road, and that's what it's done. Last year, We open with Lexington, who's a playoff team. 2 seasons ago, we come from behind as well. The Sylvania game that game was, top 5 that I've ever coached in, coming from behind. But, games like that, it gives your kids challenges, gives them confidence down the road. And that's something that our guys relied on down the stretch. And it's a good football team. They were beating the quarterfinals. Last season, got beaten in the semifinals 2 years ago. They beat us 2 years ago, but we got better because we played Sylvania. And they're close. Our kids go to church with them, maybe kin to them. Or their neighbors. It's close. It's like 8 miles from here to Sylvania, maybe closer than that school wise. Depends on which way you go. But when we get to add Plainview back, that's one of the games you ask our seniors. They've not got to play them, since they were younger. That's one of them they wanted to get back on the schedule. So I talked to Dad, we were able to get them back on the schedule. And then Randolph, to be honest with you, they're the ones that agreed to it. They're going to be really good. We were looking for a team that kind of spread because we feel like going into the playoffs, that's what we may see. So that was kind of really the ones that we could get on schedule. Because it was a lot tougher this go around than it was 4 years ago scheduling. I promise you that. You go into so North Sand Mountain's rival. They got a new coach, but they still got a good core there. They made the playoffs. I think they made it like 6 years in a row. Coach Kirby did a phenomenal job. And the new coach has had success where he's been. Never been a head coach, but been a coordinator. He's had success. We played against those guys. That when we play them, it'll be a good ball game because it's rivalry. Riley's been there a year now at section. He's got a few more help from some of his assistants, so I think he's got some more kids out. We play them second. That's a rival game as well. And then we go to Pleasant Valley, got to go on the road. We played them the first game of the playoffs last season, but they were banged up last year. So I expect earlier in the year to be a much tougher ball game. I know their best lineman was hurt against us last year. I know their quarterback didn't play. They had a few more. I remember Coach telling me they had about 5 or 6 that didn't make the trip, in the first round. Then we go to non-region. I already mentioned those games. We come back with Sandrock. It's the same Sandrock team, but they're a year older. Coaches alluded to where we were a few years ago, and that's exactly kind of how they are. I think this year they may be sophomores and juniors. I can't remember, but somewhere in there. Coach does a great job there as well. Don't know much about Gaston. I know Derek is the head coach there. I don't know much about the team. It's new in the region. We'll get more film as we go along. Cedar Bluff, second-year coach there. So don't know a lot about Cedar Bluff. They're moving up from 1A. I think we saw them play Sandrock last year on film. Am I leaving anybody out? I'm trying to think off the top of my head. We go Fyffe.
I think you mentioned everybody.
I didn't say anything about Fyffe. You don't have to say anything about them. So we played them the last 2 seasons. They beat us 4 times. You got, I think, Coach is second on the all-time winningest current right now. He can take yours and beat you with yours, and he can beat you with his as well. But that's something. When I was in 6A, people talked about, well, who did you play that, the coach or whatever. I'm like, one of the best ones ever went against, Coach Benefield. He's a Hall of Famer. So, in that core, this senior class, I think there's like 11 or 12 of them. They played a lot of football, just like our guys have. And I think the bulk of their team will be sophomores this year. They had a lot of freshmen that had to play last year. They'll be sophomores this year. So they'll be a good football team. They're expected to win it in 3A. So, that's something that we wanted when we played. Sylvania's got a lot of guys back. They got a new coach, but they got a lot of guys back in the core that, that's made it to the semifinals, that made it to the quarterfinals. Those are the games that we wanted. We wanted that challenge for our non-region, for the stretch run. So that's why we got those guys on the schedule.
Yeah, and I'm sure Coach Benefield, he's not going to tell you on record, but if you talk to him off record, he's going to tell you that Coach Pruitt and that Pisgah football team gives us a fit because, I know you've battled him, had made up on him. Hadn't been easy. I know that's for sure. Well, I'm going to ask you something else, and I'm going to let Howie ask a couple of questions, but something we need to point out on, and parents love to hear this. Talk about several of the kids you're counting on this year, because I know parents love to hear names. Tell us about some of the kids coming up this year that you're counting on, because this could be a special season.
So I'll go offense and defense, and I'm sure I'll leave somebody out. But so I mentioned Caleb Jenkins at Z. He's been a 1B for 2 years. He's been a backup for us, rotated a lot, but he will play the Z position. Jacob Kirby graduated, was a great player for us. Caleb steps in and gets to be the producer at Z instead of the contributor, if you want to call it that. We have Jet Jeffrey back at Y. He'll be a junior. This is his 3rd year at Y. Jet does a really good job for us catching balls from the Y position and block. He's really not built for that position, but you get your best 11 on the field. We have Legion coming back, 4-year guy, rushed for over 1,000 yards last 3 seasons, had over 1,500 total last year. Games were out of hand, so he didn't get to touch it as much as he needed to probably last year. Then we have Luke Gilbert steps into the quarterback position. He's played since his sophomore season at quarterback in different deals, but we were able this offseason to tweak our offense to fit the things that Luke does best. And he's moving from his X position. At H is Landon Watkins, who's a returner, starter for us at H. He had right at 1,000 yards all purpose. Far as last year at H, he does a really good job catching the ball in space. He can run. He can also run the football. That's kind of what the H is. It's kind of hybrid back, wide out type. Our X is Jackson Smiley. Luke moved to quarterback. Jack, he's got starts under his belt through the years. He was a 1B as well. He's been in a lot of football games for us. He was in the whole drive against 2 years ago as a freshman when we were playing at Lexington. He's in the last 2 drives that we score in. Last year he's in the Sylvania drive. We score. He catches 2-point conversion in the semifinals, catches the balls versus Fyffe. So, they asked me at media day how many guys we got coming back. Well, I really count those guys as starters too, because we don't care. They're in. We go play with them, and it doesn't affect our play calls. So that's something. So that's our skill guys. We have 4 returning guys up front. The right tackle is J.J. Williams, who started since he was an 8th grader. He's going to play right tackle. He played guard last year, I believe, is right for us, and he's moving to tackle this year. We expect a lot of things from J.J. Talon Lang is one of those guys that started some as an 8th grader as well on the O-line. So he's played off and on OLDL for us his whole career. He's a senior, the right side seniors. Wes Arnold's a junior coming back at center for us. Wes does a really good job. He can pull. That's something, we ask our centers to do. But Wes's first start was against Fyffe 2 years ago. Congratulations. You're going to get to start as a freshman. It's against the defending state champion to get to block Tucker Wilkes. But he's done a really good job. If you don't have to say anything to the center the whole season, that means he's done a really good job. And that's something Wes goes through our protections and all that stuff. And then we got Chad Smith, who's a returning starter at left guard. He'll be a junior. He started for us all last year, played some as a sophomore. And then Alex Flores will play the left tackle. He's a junior as well. And I mentioned last year, J.D. Martin graduated. J.D. was injured a couple of games. So Alex stepped in and started. And when we played our short yardage offense, Alex came in anyway. So he's got starts under his belt. So we're relying heavily on the veteran O-line that we've got. We got a lot of veteran guys that's been in the fight. Maybe their name has not been called because they've been underclassmen, but they've always been there. Some guys that we're looking at to provide backups for us or provide depth. Kate Duncan played linebacker only last year. He looks to play some Y for us this year. Levi Horton also at Y. Brody McBride will be a sophomore. He plays F. But we're like, look, Brody, you can play F when Jet graduates, or you can learn another position and help us. And he's worked at H and some Z. Mason Gass is another one that's worked. He'll be a freshman that's worked some Z as well. So that's kind of some younger guys. Cutter Mays is a backup quarterback. He'll be a freshman. We're trying to get to where, they need to be. That's kind of backup offensive lineman that's close. Eric Williams be a junior. He's a backup center. We try to get 7 to play multiple spots. Isaac Griggs will be a senior. He rolls on the D line, but he's got starts on the offensive line. Also, Jagger Gilbert will be a sophomore, upcoming sophomore. That's had a really good off season. That's Luke's younger brother. That's Coach Gilbert's youngest boy, but he'll be a sophomore for us. Those guys are kind of the 8 vying for those 7 spots. So that that's something that that we're trying to continue to build going into fall camp. Defensively, a lot of those guys flip over. At corner, Caleb Jenkins plays. He started last year in the playoffs. He was a 1B. He rotated every game. We have Cutter Mays. He's played safety, but he's getting some corner reps. He's a freshman that's got to come on and be a 1B for us. I said Caleb. Caleb is moving from corner to safety. I apologize. Jackson Smalley will start at corner. He rotated last year as well. He'll play corner for us. Cutter will back up. You have Caleb at strong. Got Luke that's played back there since he was a freshman. At safety, he's kind of the field general now. He does those things that we ask him to do. Ross Smith is another freshman that will see time at safety as well. We've got to get the freshmen up to the 1B, where we feel like it doesn't matter, affect our cause, and that's what we've used part of the summer and even into fall camp. What we're trying to do. Legion McQuarrie plays corner for us. He's a 4-year guy. We put him out there and say, hey, we'll talk to you when it's over with. Landon Watkins is somebody that's learning to play the corner position as well. He played strictly offense, but this year we're trying to get him and lead, whichever the freshest, because I mentioned that's all of my skill guys on offense. And they got to play where we can score. We got to get those guys where we can rest them some on defense. But if we can get them to share positions, that's what we're going to do. And I don't care who's in. It don't affect my call. That's the thing. We got to get to where we get the confidence in them. Jet Jeffrey started an outside linebacker for us for 3 years now, plays our star or the old Sam position. He does a really good job. Mason Gass is his backup. He's a freshman. We got to get him up to par. Depending on what we're in, Kate Duncan's our Mike. He started last year, had close to 100 tackles. Jet had close to 70-something tackles as well. He's very productive, creates negative plays. And Kate had close to 100. They all play on special teams. Levi Horton is a guy that he's very quiet. And he rotated as a sophomore and against Lexington in that comeback. Jet was a freshman. They played the same spot. Well, after the game, we're grading film, and Levi had 10 tackles. And Levi's made plays throughout his career that you don't know he's there, and all of a sudden there'll be something that you tell them, hey, if they give you this formation, this is coming. Well, when you have those, Levi's always in that spot. Every year we talk about we're going to replace Levi, and every year we don't replace him. Because the kid makes plays, and he's very humble, very quiet, but he plays the wheel. But something that Levi and Kate and Jet, all those guys, we cross-train them at different positions, which makes us multiple on defense. We like it if we don't have to sub. And Levi plays defensive end, the jack position. He plays wheel. He's played Mike for us. So Levi's him and Kate both are very in jet for that, can play multiple spots. And then another linebacker that's in that deal is Brody McBride. Depending on what we're in, he could be the jack or the wheel. So he's a sophomore that's probably going to see action on defense sooner than later. Lucas Cook's another freshman. He had an injury last season. We're getting him back now. We got to get him to progress. But that's kind of our linebacking core. I'm sure I missed somebody there, but that's the first time Coach Kirby's had them all back. We got all of our linebackers back. We haven't had that opportunity in a long time, and but we expect a lot out of those guys up front. We got a lot of guys that's going to rotate, but Christian Raines is coming back. He didn't play last year. He's coming back as a senior. He started at inside linebacker. He started at outside linebacker. So Christian's going to provide depth at the field end position. Isaac Griggs has placed 3 technique for us. He's a 3-year guy that's played a ton of reps for us, does a great job eating blocks. We ask them to keep them off our linebackers, and they do a good job of it. JJ Williams plays nose. Actually, move him around. He plays multiple spots. We just kind of move him around where give the offensive guys fits. But he'll play the nose. Depending on what we're in, Wes Arnold is another end. He's our center. It's important to have a backup center where Wes can play defense. Wes very productive, came on as the year went on last year, had close to 40 tackles. You don't think that's a lot. Well, it is a lot when you didn't start playing until about week 6. So, he's there. And then our offensive line guys, you got Gavin Medlock, who's played outside linebacker. He may play some nose. He's a smaller body. We may get him in at nose, some outside linebacker position. Seth Hartline started ball games for us on the D-line. Talon's played Lang, Chad Smith, Alex Flores, Eric. We've got a lot of guys that we're trying to rotate. We got some freshmen that we're trying to get to that point. Jagger moved from D-line to inside linebacker. We're trying to create depth and cross-chain. Jagger's growing into that jack position. Lane Smith, Will Mashburn are 2 freshmen that's got a chance to rotate up front. Josh Herron will be a junior as well that's going to rotate some. So we've got a lot of depth, and that's what we tell our guys. Look, you're a freshman, try to get on special teams, try to get in the 2 deep and rotate. As a sophomore, try to start or get in the rotation. And that's something. We have a small sophomore class where we got 21 juniors and seniors. If you're a sophomore right now and you start, you're really good because we got a lot of veteran guys coming back. But, we told them, said, look, guys, find a spot on special teams. Figure out a way to get on the field. And then when we have media day, we come back and say, well, who you got returning? Well, you got guys that's played, maybe not started every down, but played a bunch of downs. And that's something that we've been fortunate the last 2 years that these freshmen this year, I think, played in 10 football games last year as 8th graders because we were able to get games out of hand. And you can't coach varsity. You can't, the varsity experience is something that's really good. And you can't give that to them in a junior high game or a JV game.
Hal, you want to ask a couple of things?
Yeah, Coach, I wasn't expecting to be on. Randy sent me, or he called me, said, hey, there's thunderstorms, be ready. And next thing I know, I'm on here with you. And Coach, it's great to be on here with you. You kind of answered one of the questions that I was fixing to ask as far as you've had a lot of injuries the last couple of years. How much will that play into this year as far as some of those underclassmen not having a whole lot of experience? Will that help you this year?
Well, that's something that, we kind of go into it. We have questions that we want to answer in the summer. We have questions that we want to answer in fall camp. You have a veteran bunch. We know a lot of those guys can play, and it's kind of like we have 2 different teams. You have the juniors and seniors. There's 21 of them and a lot of them have played. About 19 of them played significant reps. Well, then you have these sophomores and freshmen that you're trying to get to that point. and that's something that we're trying to cross train guys. We may say, hey, all right, today you're going to learn this position, and that's something that you never know when it's going to happen. And we've been there, and we kind of have projected, where our kids are kind of growing up through the years. Well, then, when you get to be a ninth grader, if you played corner and we need you at outside linebacker, guess what? You're going to become an outside linebacker, and we're going to try to teach you, well, you can always go back to corner. That's something Grant Smith for us last year. He played corner, strong safety, free safety, will linebacker in his career. Well, we get into playing Tuscaloosa Academy, and Tanner, they don't sub and keep personnel. We're able to play odd front, nickel front, or nickel 3 high stuff and 4 down, because we have guys that we teach our linebackers to be able to play that jack position, and we're trying to cross train these guys at different positions where if I'd hate to know that I have one of my best players standing on the sideline, somebody gets hurt, and he said, well, I don't know that position. Well, that's my fault as a coach, that they're not ready to be in that position. So some of our twos kind of cross-train, or if we've got one that can play, like if something happens and we got somebody that can play inside linebacker, one of my insides may become an outside if they can handle it. That's something that, that we look at as a staff and kind of go with it that way.
Coach, we know you got to get out of here. You got other things to go on. Let me ask you one quick question, and you may want to correct me on this, but how does it feel to be the dean of Jackson County football coaches?
I don't know if it's the dean, but I was talking to one of my friends the other day. Do you know the only coach in Jackson, DeKalb County, that is still in his spot when I got hired? There's one in the county that – now some of them have came back where they've been, but there's one coach in the county, in both counties, since I got hired, and this is going on year 7.
Coach Benefield.
Yeah, absolutely. It blows my mind that there's been that much turnover in both counties. That's kind of crazy.
So you're the dean of Jackson and DeKalb County football then.
I don't know. I don't know about all that, but so you got, Coach Willingham's back at Collinsville, Dad's back at Plainview, Coach Hammond's back at Valley Head. Those guys have been there, but they were not there when I got hired. And I could be mistaken with Coach Hammond. I'm pretty sure he wasn't there 7 years ago. I think he was still in Georgia at that time. But, in Jackson County, Woodville's got a new coach. North Sand Coach Kirby, just gave it up. He was the most tenured, coach at North Jackson still there. And then Riley's at section, but, there's been turnover, and, I'm fortunate that, year 3 was still a rebuild, and it wasn't, we made the playoffs 2 years, had the COVID. It wasn't great. Year 4's when it started upticking, and, Dr. Pressures was our principal at that time. Coach Billy Duncan took a chance on me and hired me, gave me an opportunity. And then Coach Duncan retired, and Dr. Pressures came in, and, he told me, he was like, look, I asked him one day, I was like, look, if I'm going to get fired, let me know where I can. He was like, Coach, everything's headed in the right direction. And he said, you're not going nowhere. So that was nice to have the vote of confidence. And then Coach Darwin, or in that time when between Coach Duncan and Coach Duncan and Dr. Pressures, Miss Whitney Smith took over and did a great job and helped. Her son Grant graduated last year, played for us. But Coach Darwin came on board, and he's been there. Whatever we need, he does. He gets it for us. And I mentioned earlier he graduated from here, and it matters to him and his wife and his family. Pisgah does. Their daughter just graduated, but it matters. They're Pisgah Eagles through and through, and that's all the thing. I can't express how much this community has poured out to me and my family since we've been here. It's great, but it is crazy. Going back to your question, it is crazy to think that I'm one of the most. I don't think I'm very old. I'm just 41. I'm not 41 yet. I still got a month, but to be one of the longest tenured in both counties.
Yeah, absolutely. Coach, we know you got to get out. You got practice to get to, and we appreciate you coming on. Um, you mentioned all the upgrades and everything. Do y'all have any fundraisers you want to dish out real quick to let everybody know about?
We currently have, I might get in trouble. Somebody may get onto us. We currently have a gun raffle going right now. Friday is when the drawing is. We have different selection of guns that, have opportunity to buy. They're $20 a piece or 6 for $100. So we can get you hooked up with that if anybody's interested that's out there. See a parent of a player. The players can't sell them, but see a parent or a coach, and that's really the only one that we have that we do in the summer.
Good deal, Coach. Thanks for joining us, and we'll let you get
I
to your
want to
practice.
ask one question before you go, Coach, if you got
Yes,
time.
sir.
Okay, all this time when you build a program, it seems like it was yesterday. And I remember meeting you the first year you were there, and you were worried about how things were going to go. Well, when you first start out, your teams are mostly coach driven. Over time, they become player driven. When you have a veteran team like's coming back this year, do a lot of times you kind of sort of prepare these kids, get them ready, send them out on the field, and then sometimes try to sort of stand out of their way, because sometimes coaches sometimes can overanalyze, overcoach, and those types of situations where you just kind of let them dictate a lot of things and just kind of give them reminders.
Yes. You have more success when you have a player driven team. We're fortunate to have some really good leaders in our locker room. That's something. I was talking to one of my coaching friends the other day. I can think of 2 instances last season that I had, that you're talking about. That's something, you got alpha males. Sometimes you have more than one alpha male. But I can remember 2 different instances where kids asked me questions in the heat of the, that I didn't take offense to because they had a vested interest. Later on they apologized, but they had a vested interest in our program. They got sweat equity, and I'm listening to what they have to say. One of the things, we're playing Tuscaloosa Academy. We've lost Mason, and we're up like 2 scores, I think. We don't traditionally punt, anyways. I think we're up 2 scores. There's like 5 minutes to go, and we're about the 40-yard line. And pretty much, we go for it a lot, and it's like 4th and 3 on our 40 backed up. And I tell them we're going to punt it. We're in a timeout, and we're discussing. I said, we're going to punt it. We're up 14. And Luke's like, Coach, you don't trust me? I said, yeah, I trust you. I said, but we're up 14 right here. It's not one of those times, we got to punt it, and he's like, let's go for it. I promise you I'll get it, Coach. And I said, no, we're going to punt it. We're going to play defense. And, he questioned it. I didn't lose any sleep over it. He apologized later on, but he's a winner. And, he's got equity, and, I don't think anything about it. Another time I alluded to, right before halftime, Fyffe after the penalty, Jacob Kirby wanted us. He was like, why are we running it? We're backed up. I'm like, we got to get to halftime, and he's like, Coach, he said, I can win. And I said, I know you can win, but we got to, say frustration, whatever, but those dudes have, got sweat equity. So when they handle some things, I let them handle some things, and it's not, I don't think anything about it, but we've got some great leaders in our program that, we're fortunate to have. They've grown up, and, they kind of handle it when they're out there, and we've got some good leadership.
Thank you, Coach, for your time. We sure do appreciate it.
Hey, I got one more thing. I was supposed to, I don't know if y'all knew this, but I was supposed to, our motto, the last couple of years we've had a motto. Yeah. So this year's motto is we stand alone together, which if y'all have seen the Band of Brothers, Easy Company, going back to of the 101st Airborne, that was their motto. And I came up with some, and the guys didn't like it, and they came to me with it. And I loved it because I think it fits us perfectly. Going back to the Band of Brothers, when they were at Camp Toccoa in Georgia, they had a hill that they had to climb. Sobel made them climb it, and they hated it to begin with. They called it Curie, and that's where it came from. That's an old Cherokee word. But they became united because they had to run that 3-mile hill and back down. And they came to me with it, and they mentioned that, Coach, we're individuals, but we put aside our individuals to be a team. And I take it a step further in that the fact of, I mentioned at media day that our community, or our high school, is made up of really 5 communities, in Pisgah, Rosalie, Flat Rock, Dutton, and Henniger. And these guys go K through 8. They have the opportunity to go K through 8 at those schools. And there's pride in all those communities, and there's competition in, our rec programs playing against each other. But, all that's kind of put aside when they get to Pisgah, and, and we're all made up of Pisgah High School. And I thought that was a great motto. They came to me, I said, absolutely. I said, this one, we may adopt this one past this season, but I think it's something, anytime a high school kid comes to you and says, hey, Coach, everybody's made up differently. We're all individuals. We all have individual goals, but we're going to set aside our individual goals for the betterment of the team. I'm like, absolutely. And that's something that, last year, we could have run the score up on some folks and padded individual stats and all those things. And we had some guys that probably didn't get awards that they deserved, but you never heard one of those kids complain. The only person that complained was me, because they put all the time and all that effort into it. And, they didn't get the recognition that they deserve, which we all know offensive line and defensive line don't ever get the recognition they deserve. But some of our skill guys deserved some other individual recognition, in my opinion, as their football coach, knowing that, we didn't run the score up. We called the dogs off. We didn't try to pad their stats. But anyways, that's our motto this year, is we stand alone together. And the origin comes from the Band of Brothers, Easy Company of the 101st Airborne.
Awesome, Coach. Coach, you got to get out of here. We're holding you up.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank y'all for having me on.
Yeah.
Thanks,
we
Coach.
enjoyed it,
Coach.
Coach. And good luck. Hey, the goal is let's get to Progressive Stadium this year.
Yes, sir. We start in the morning working on it, or tomorrow afternoon.
Okay.
Best of luck to you, Coach, and you're welcome
Thank
back
y'all.
anytime.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all.
I may be wrong, boys, and thank you for jumping on, Howie. As you could see, it got really nasty for about 15 minutes, and my cell service was spotty. I don't know if a coach fits a community better than Luke Pruitt in Pisgah High School. Every time I hear him talk, I know he is a Pisgah Eagle. Phil, just a perfect fit, coach in a community.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He fits in well. He's a people person, and it's a people community. I've been around that community for a long time. I was wanting to ask him about, Adam Gilbert when he played. They got to the championship game, and, boy, they got on a roll. And, of course, Adam's able to share stories with the kids because he's been there. And that's always a big help. It's always great to have somebody on your staff that had success. They know what these teams' goals are. They know where they're going because they've been there. And so, that helps you as a coach too.
Howie, you said it at media days when Coach Pruitt started talking, he just kind of took over the room. He has that presence about him.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's nothing bad against him. He wants to be thorough with his answers, and I love it. He went through every – Phil was just basically asking to a certain extent, hey, just name some of your players.
Yeah.
He gave us a rundown as far as he gave us a depth chart, just to be honest about it. First string, second string depth chart.
Well, the reason I had him do that, he discussed and he said that when he was at media days, he got so much positive feedback from parents over mentioning kids' names. So I wanted him to do it because that's what this is all about. It's about those kids playing at the bottom line. Sometimes we forget that. And so these kids need to be mentioned because it's special to them. When they hear their names, it makes them feel good. And that's what this is all about.
Phil, refresh. I know we're going to do a media thing later on, but refresh my memory. Collinsville, Coach Willingham brought his 5 starting offensive linemen.
He did.
You don't see that very often at media days. Usually it's always skilled people, but he brought his 5 starting offensive linemen, and I like that because like Coach Pruitt saying, like you said, Phil, those big guys up front don't get a whole lot of recognition.
No, and Ernie, Ernie's funny anyway. When he said that about one of the other players wanted to come, he told him, he goes, "No, you're not coming. You ain't got the right number."
Right.
So yeah, Coach Willingham is funny, but yeah, those guys don't get a lot of notoriety, and and they're the kind of the basis for for what happens. Just like for instance, when Fyffe loses Mason Holcomb, okay, he goes down. You have to move Gilbert to quarterback, which takes away your probably most explosive player on the outside. But who do you have to count on? You still have to count on that offensive line because they have to make it happen.
Yep, absolutely.
Your chart, it's really a whole family operation because evidently he left Gavin out, so his lovely wife had to bring. He made the comment, Coach Gavin.
But he did. If you notice later on, he did mention a Gavin. I don't know if it's the correct one or not, but he did mention a Gavin playing outside linebacker.
Yeah, absolutely. That was during his linebacker spill. Tomorrow night, Howie, we have a Sylvania football review with Coach Nelson and extra guest.
Yeah, we're gonna have.
Who?
I'm sorry, Randy. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
We're gonna have.
I was trying to say.
Yeah, we're gonna have Mr. Patrick Roselle on tomorrow night, the band director at Sylvania. I reached out to the cheerleader sponsor, Miss Corbin, to try to see if she would come on. Haven't heard nothing back from her, so. But anyway, we're gonna have a legit preview of what it's going to be like on Friday nights at a Sylvania High School football game.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting.
And then at 7 o'clock.
A little different angle. That's good.
Yes, absolutely. And that's Howie's ideal to kind of include the whole game day experience in our Sylvania show. And at 7 o'clock, us three on here trying to recap media days, Phil. We're going to talk about Jackson and DeKalb counties, who was there. Of course, Scottsboro and Fort Payne was on the Marshall County days. But still, that's a lot to cover in an hour.
Yeah, we'll talk about them. Of course, Howie, I think Randy's probably going to want to do a spin-off show for Hickston High School football. It'll be football booth, concession stand, and bathroom.
Well, I could do that when I had 3 people on the announce team, but this year I have hired Jace Moses, former player, to be with me. But so far, that's as far as we've got. Jace has never done sports, but he's very, he'll remind me of me in 1990 when we were trying to get our first foot in the door. So Jace Moses will be with me on the broadcast, but I need a third so I can get to the concession stand.
Yeah, well, I tell you, get you a sideline mic, and when I come up on October 31st for the Hicks and East Ridge game, I'll do the sideline for you.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
All right, fellas, that was a great show with Coach Pruitt, and we had great attendance, and that community always turns out well. And I'm ready to go eat a hamburger and call it a day. So, Howie, any final words or Phil?
Just imagine that. Randy's actually going to go eat.
Yeah.
It's going to.
Hey, you know what would be a good investment, Howie? Park a food truck outside his house.
Yes, it would. Thursday night, the Dairyberries are on here, Phil. So don't forget that.
Oh, yeah,
we need to promote that.
Yeah.
Back to Pisgah real quick. Expecting big expectations this year from the Pisgah Eagles. Expect them to go all the way progressive stadium possibility, for the state championship.
Yeah.
Great nucleus. They did lose a few players, but they got a great nucleus coming back, well coached, as you heard a while ago. And so high expectations from Pisgah. Phil, I expect WQSB to have Coach Pruitt on there pretty much every week this coming season.
Yeah. Of course, everybody that's coming up is going to, the two to keep an eye out for, and the Pisgah, everybody in the community in Pisgah is going to be looking for is Coosa Christian and that Tuscaloosa Academy again. That'll be the two you'll kind of sort of keep up with on Friday nights. So that's two probably you're going to see somewhere down the stretch.
Yep, along the playoff run.
I had a question here that I wanted to ask Coach Pruitt. We just ran out of time. A couple of the SEC coaches during media days expressed their unhappiness that Coach Saban was retired. And I was going to ask Coach Pruitt, was he happy or sad that Coach Benefield left his district? But, of course, they're playing them in a non-district game, so he still gets to line up and compete against them.
Well, I think that's, Randy, that's one of those where if you're going to compete and you're a competitor, you want to play the best. It don't matter if it's in in the 2A, 3A, it does not matter. I guarantee you if Fyffe was in 2A, he knows he has to beat the best, and at some point it would be Fyffe. And Tuscaloosa Academy is going to take that place of Fyffe. But anytime you're a competitor like that, you want to play the best. You don't want somebody just to walk up and hand it to you.
And I think that would surprise the normal fan that you actually want the bar set as high as you can get. And that's what brings you satisfaction.
Well, Randy, you didn't, I don't know if you saw it on media day or not, but Coach Pruitt mentioned that he had already been in contact with Coach Benefield before the numbers came out, saying, "Hey, let's make sure we play each other again next year." And they worked it out to where they could play each other for the next 2 years.
And that's going to be on Thursday night. Yeah.
Yes.
It's going to be Thursday night, the first game of the season, August 22nd. So I'm going to try to be there. Maybe Coach Darwin will give me a place in the skybox up there in that new stadium.
Howie Cheney can't watch football unless it's in a building.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Yep.
I may even cut some of this beard off between now and tomorrow night. I was looking at it, kind of looking like a fat Santa Claus. For Randall Cunningham, for Howie Cheney, for Phil Harris. We'll see you tomorrow night with the Sylvania Sylvania game preview and a recap of media days.
And I'll join y'all about 7.